whisper about a train that sometimes appeared at midnight, a train that never showed up on any schedule and never carried living passengers. They said if you ever saw it, you should run, because anyone who stepped inside was never truly the same again. That night, a young traveler named Daniel was sitting alone on a worn wooden bench at a nearly abandoned railway station. The wind moved through the empty tracks with a hollow whistle, and the old station clock above the platform was stuck at 11:59 p.m., its hands frozen like time itself had stopped breathing. Daniel had missed the last train home. He checked his phone again and again, but there was no signal, no taxis, no sound of life anywhere. Only darkness stretching across the empty tracks. The cold night air wrapped around him as if the station itself was watching him wait. Then suddenly, from far down the railway line, he heard something, a faint rumbling, like metal slowly grinding against metal. At first he thought he was imagining it, but the sound grew louder. A train was coming, but something about it felt terribly wrong. Normally trains arrive with bright headlights and the roar of engines echoing across the station. Yet this one glided forward like a shadow, sliding across the ground. No lights, no horn, no conductor visible through the front window. Just an old black locomotive that looked like it belonged to another century, rolling silently into the station as fog curled around its wheels. Daniel slowly stood up, confused and uneasy. The train doors creaked open by themselves with a long, echoing groan, and a cold wind rushed past him like something invisible had just stepped inside. For a moment, every instinct in his body told him not to move, told him to walk away while he still could. But he was tired, stranded, and desperate to get home. Above the open door was a small rusted sign that read only two chilling words: "Last ride." Daniel hesitated, then stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the doorway, the train doors slammed shut behind him with a thunderous bang that echoed through the empty carriage. At first, the inside of the train looked normal. Rows of worn seats, dim yellow lights flickering overhead, dust floating through the stale air like tiny drifting ghosts. Daniel slowly walked down the aisle and called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" The only reply was the distant rattling of the train beginning to move again. But then he noticed something strange. The seats weren't empty. People were sitting in them, dozens of passengers filling the carriage. Men, women, children, all sitting perfectly still. None of them spoke. None of them moved. Their faces were pale, and their eyes stared forward like statues. Daniel laughed nervously under his breath, trying to convince himself that everything was normal, that maybe these people were just tired travelers like him. But when he walked past the first passenger, his laughter died in his throat, because the man beside him had no reflection in the dark window beside his seat. Daniel slowly leaned closer, his heartbeat suddenly pounding in his ears. The man's skin was gray, his clothes looked decades old, and as Daniel passed him, the man's head slowly turned toward him without blinking, without breathing, just watching. A freezing chill crawled up Daniel's spine. Then another passenger moved. Across the aisle, a woman slowly lifted her head, revealing eyes that were completely black. One by one, every passenger began turning toward Daniel. Hundreds of silent eyes locked onto him at the same time. None of them looked alive. Panic exploded in Daniel's chest, and he began running down the narrow aisle. his footsteps echoing loudly through the carriage. Yet the passengers didn't chase him. They simply watched silently, waiting. At the end of the train, he saw a door with a brass sign above it that read "Conductor." Desperate for help, Daniel burst inside. The small control room was dimly lit by a single lantern swinging gently from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the walls. Standing beside the train controls was a tall figure wearing an old conductor's uniform. His back was turned. "Sir," Daniel shouted, breathless with fear. "Something is wrong with the passengers." The conductor didn't move. Slowly, he turned around. Daniel's breath stopped completely, because the conductor had no face. Where a face should have been was only smooth, empty skin stretched across his head. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. It somehow Daniel felt that the thing was smiling at him. The faceless conductor slowly raised a thin skeletal hand and pointed toward the window. Trembling, Daniel looked outside, and what he saw froze his blood. The train was no longer moving through the town. Instead, it was gliding through an endless graveyard. Thousands upon thousands of tombstones stretched across the darkness, passing by the windows like a silent ocean of the dead. Names carved from every decade, every century, every forgotten life. Finally, the conductor spoke, his voice sounding like wind scraping across broken glass. "This train carries the souls of those who missed their final stop." Daniel's heart pounded wildly. "I'm alive," he shouted desperately. "I'm not supposed to be here." The conductor slowly tilted his head. "Then why did you board?" Daniel had no answer. Just then the train began slowing down. Outside the window, a massive cemetery gate appeared, illuminated by ghostly moonlight. Above it hung a wooden sign that read, "Final Station." The train doors opened with a deep metallic groan. At the same moment, every passenger in the train stood up together. Hundreds of silent figures began walking toward the exit. Daniel backed away in terror. No, this can't be happening. The conductor stepped closer, his empty face turned toward Daniel. "You boarded the train willingly," he said. "That makes you a passenger." Daniel ran. He pushed through the ghostly crowd and sprinted toward the back of the train, trying to escape. But something impossible began to happen. The farther he ran, the longer the train became. Car after car after car appeared ahead of him, stretching endlessly into darkness as if the train had no end at all. The lights flickered violently above him while whispers filled the air. Hundreds of voices repeating the same chilling sentence again and again. "You chose the ride. You chose the ride. You chose the ride." Exhausted and terrified, Daniel collapsed to his knees. "I just wanted to go home," he whispered. Suddenly the whispers stopped. The lights went dark, and everything became silent. Slowly, Daniel opened his eyes. Morning sunlight poured across the station platform. Birds were chirping. People walked by casually as if nothing strange had ever happened. Daniel jumped to his feet in shock. The train was gone. The tracks were empty. Relief flooded his chest, and he laughed nervously. It was just a nightmare, he said to himself. But then he noticed something in his hand. A small paper ticket, old and yellowed with faded ink. His smile slowly disappeared as he read the words printed on it. Passenger name, Daniel. Destination, Final Station. And at the bottom of the ticket were 3 chilling words. Next departure, midnight. Daniel slowly looked up at the station clock. The hand removing again, ticking slowly toward 11:59 p.m.